name is Lindsay Oswald with the Michigan High-Speed Internet Office, which we refer to as MIHI. And I would like to share with you today some information about the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Grant that we received. There's lots of acronyms here. We received from the National Telecommunications and Information Administration. So this is a federal grant program. It was over $40 billion that was distributed to the states. And Michigan's portion is a little under $1.6 billion. And we're using this to get internet to all the areas that got missed with all the other programs. So you may have heard some of the other programs that were bringing broadband to your areas. But what happened is everything was, there were pockets that were missed across the state. And this program was to fill in all those pockets. We went through a complete bidding process. And we prioritized certain technologies. And then last June 6th, we were told that the notice of funding opportunity had changed. It was reissued, and we had 90 days to redo the bidding process for this program. And the focus on this was low bid. So we have changed the program significantly in the last year from what we were originally looking to move forward with, but luckily our office pivots well, and we got everything set so that the just under 200,000 locations in the state of Michigan that do not have broadband connections will have it. And for us, broadband is a set standard, and we know some people can get internet, but they might not get fast internet, and there's an expectation that you have a certain level of service. A lot of our project is going to be fiber internet, which is a lot higher speed than I ever got to experience in my hometown. But luckily, as I sold my house last month and moved out of my rural area, I had 2 fiber providers and a cable provider as I was leaving. So just so you're aware, homes like mine would not have been considered for BEAD because I already was served. I already had service that met that minimum threshold of having broadband service. So when we're building with BEAD dollars, we're building to somebody that does not have, that has not met that threshold. I want to tell you about a map that's super fun to play with, MichiganBroadbandMap.com. It shows all of the locations, and it shows how things are funded. So if you go to this, where the address, can you see my mouse? Okay, where the address is, you can drop down and search that by township. You can search it by county, you can search it by city. So you can zoom into your area that way, or you can just zoom in on the map. And you can search your address also. And this is, I just brought up Hastings area, so we can see what Hastings looks like. You can see that all the dots here are green, which means they're already served or there's already other funding that's going to build to those locations. So if you are one of these green dots and you don't have internet service yet, you're going to be funded through something other than BEAD, and you will have service. And then I just moved a little bit west of town for this picture here. And you can see those red dots. It says construction not started. And if I clicked on one of those red dots, it will tell me the address, and it will also tell me who's received funding for that location. So you'll know who's going to be serving that location with this map. We would love to tell you exactly the timelines, but I can tell you permitting and construction timelines don't always go as promised. But what we can say is that this is a 4-year construction period for BEAD. The internet service providers do have an opportunity to request a 1-year extension if something goes awry, but in general, these locations will be served within the next 4 years. So the part that you might be more concerned about is how they're going to break through your communities. And these are the main sources of ground disturbance that you will see. Just so you're aware, there are areas in our state that will be funded by low Earth orbit satellite. So those do not have ground disturbance in the state of Michigan. Those projects do not require any ground stations to be built for our state. So you won't see any permits come through for them. But the wired construction, the first thing to ask is aerial or underground. And many of our fiber and cable providers may use both. There are sections of routes that it may be beneficial to be underground for most of it, but then they have to pop up onto aerial fiber for other stretches, and vice versa. There's things that they're considering when they're designing these networks, like railroads, whether it's easier to go over or under railroads, whether it's easier to go over or under wetlands. They want to make sure that they're taking care of the environment while they're doing this. So we do have environmental permitting as part of this project because it is receiving federal funds. If any of you are familiar with NEPA, the National Environment Protection Act, Policy Act, it requires that we look at what the project is going to be disturbing before they go through and build it. We avoid if possible, and then if it can't be avoided, we mitigate. So if there's an endangered species in your community, we're going to make sure that we have best management practices in place for that endangered species. We're going to make sure we go around wetlands where we can, and if we can't, we're going to work with the Eagle Department of Michigan and make sure we're doing things the right way. The other potential ground disturbance is the fixed wireless construction methods. And mostly you will see this if fiber has to be run to a tower or if a tower has to be built. But ultimately, these are the three types of construction projects that you will see in your communities for building out broadband. So some of the things that we have done to make sure that this goes as smoothly as possible, we have done webinars for our internet service providers that are part of the program. We have conducted weekly roundtables. We just recently switched to every other week for the summertime, but we're still staying engaged with them and letting them know what we're seeing as far as permitting goes, and we're inviting permitting agencies to attend these roundtables and have conversations with our internet service providers. One thing I want to offer to community leaders is an invitation to these permitting roundtables. We have been heavily focused on the national environmental reviews right now, and I believe that is going to take another few weeks, but potentially in August you're going to start seeing permits on your desks, and if there's questions that you have or there's FaceTime that you want with these internet service providers, this is the way to do that, and I'm happy to extend invitations for these. We have about an attendance of about anywhere from 45 to 80 on a regular basis, and we record them for the internet service providers that can't attend. We have resource hubs, so we published a guidebook for our subgrantees. We have forms and checklists. If there is something specific in your community that you want our internet providers to know that are part of this program, we're happy to share forms with them. We have partnerships with Miss Dig 811, and they have attended our permitting meetings, they have done safety webinars, and they have also offered planning services to these internet companies. So like I said, we have almost 200,000 locations we're building to. That's hundreds of miles within even just one project. So these planning services allow the internet service provider to sit down with the people that are going to be doing the locates in your communities and plan out the best way to submit those tickets for 811 and the best plan to make sure that there's not flags all over everyone's yard, that the flags go down and the flags get used in a fairly efficient manner, so they're not doing it twice. And I don't know if any of you here from communities that have infrastructure, water, sewer? Okay. So that's something that if you want to come to these meetings or reach out to me, I'm happy to get you in touch with the people that are doing work in your community. We have partnerships with various utilities and railroads, so things like gas lines. We want to make the news for all the right reasons, getting people connected to the internet. We do not want to make the news for things like utilities. And so we're working closely with groups that own underground infrastructure, like, I can't remember who it is here, but groups like Consumers and DTE Energy, so that they can make sure they're in the right place at the right time while these construction projects are happening, so they can protect their infrastructure as well. And the same with railroads. We've partnered with the Railroad Association, and we've brought railroads in to discuss how their permitting works and what kind of safety features need to be considered when they're planning their network design, what kind of safety features need to be planned for the, even when you're using traffic control devices, things like that. And then one of the big things that I would like to point out is we have a payment milestone requirement for this project. Before these internet service providers receive any funding, they have to reach out to you as permitting agencies and say, we have a BEAD project coming to your community. We are going to need permits, and here's our contact information, so you have that. And the things that I would think you would want to know are how many locations are going to be in your community, how many miles of fiber, or if there's going to be a tower built, just so that you have some planning opportunity before they actually come to your community to start these projects. And they can share their construction timelines with you. I'm going to say a lot of these are a little fluid. They may plan for certain times of year, certain years, and things happen and things get moved around. So as long as you're in communication with them, though, you should be able to stay on top of what to expect for your community. So for more information, we have migov.gov/MIHI, and that internet address, the high-speed internet address at michigan.gov, is for the MIHI office. And if you have any questions in general about permitting, feel free to shoot a message there, say what it's for, and it'll get routed to me somehow, and I'll get back with you as soon as possible. Also, I have a document to share with you. It is a list of all of our subgrantees, along with all of the townships and cities they're going to be working with, along with a count of the locations in your community. So if anyone would like that, I'm happy to get that your way also. Maybe it's easier if I just send it to one location, and we can do that also. And then, are there any questions about the program? Yes?
You talked about the environmental clearance. You didn't talk about the historical.
Okay, so his question is, I talked about environmental clearance and I didn't talk about historical, but yes, we are following the Environmental Historic Preservation Act as well. So that is also known as Section 106, or people refer to SHPO at the state of Michigan. We have partnered with SHPO as well, and that is one of the steps that's part of them getting a decision memo from NTIA before they can get any notice to proceed and start construction.
So that gets submitted to whatever happens, then you submit to NTIA, then NTIA files a notice that, okay, you're okay to move forward?
So we have what's called it's called the ESACT. And I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on the acronym at the moment. Environmental Screening Program Tracking Tool, I believe. And that's where we upload the program comment form for those that are using program comment, or the SHPO decision memo if we're using a standard 106 consultation process. And then we go through a questionnaire that is things like, are there wetlands? Are there rivers in the area? Are there natural resources that need to be considered, threatened and endangered species that need to be considered? how they're going to mitigate anything that they're coming across in their building. And then we, MIHI hit submit on that. And MIHI has the status of joint lead agency for these projects, which means we're reviewing this for NTIA before it goes to NTIA. But NTIA is the one that actually produces that decision memo. So, but we divided these projects up. We have 220 NEPA project areas at the moment. And I say at the moment because there's a couple of them that we're going to have to look at changing up just because of some changes we made in scope for the BSLs, the broadband locations. But the 220 project areas are going to be looked at separately from when they're allowed to start to proceed. So if we saw an area like Hastings with a 0 lot line downtown historic district, we're going to say, well, wait a minute, we want this to be separate from outlying areas because we know in the outlying areas we're going along railroad rights of way. We're not going to run into things like historic buildings that may have an impact from this. So we separated those areas out all on our own before we even started with the sub-grantees. And now that these internet service providers know where these areas are, they have to answer this set of questions for each of those 220 project areas that we've carved out. And also to that point, we're working with the Bureau of Indian Affairs, we're working with the Forest Service, DNR. So we're looking at all the different people that have a stake in these projects. Yes?
Since November, we've approved 2 metro acts. Now we had a letter that you just mentioned from somebody saying, hey, you can get the grant. You know, we're gonna come to your area. And what our board is asking is, how many of these are we gonna get? And are they gonna be working on top of each other? And how can we find out the scope?
Okay, so.
Who can work where?
Yep, the question is, she's received a couple Metro Act permits already, and her board is asking questions about how to find out what the scope of these projects are and who can be working there. I do want to say, so Sean is the Metro Act permit expert, and he will be going in depth in all that process. But as far as understanding how many locations in your area, I will email you that document so you can see how many you're going to have in your specific township, village, or city. And then you please keep in mind that just because we're doing these projects doesn't mean you're not also going to get other interest in your area. So there have been grant projects that are being built right now that are not part of BEAD, and those are starting to wrap up. We know where those are. That was that map where if it's green, it might be funded by a project that isn't built yet, but should be built soon. And then there's also companies coming in and seeing an opportunity to do business in a new market, and they're building also. So it's not necessarily just BEAD. I have asked all of our sub-grantees to say BEAD at the top of every letter and every permit application they send out, just so you all know you can call me if you see something and have questions, and I can help you get in touch with that internet service provider if you're having issues getting a hold of them or need some technical assistance that I will hand you off to whatever the other agency is that handles that technical assistance, whether it be DNR, Eagle, MPSC for Metro Act.
And you're the Michigan.gov/MIHI?
So I work for MIHI, and if you,
Email later.
I can give it to you now, that's okay. It's Oswald L2 at Michigan.gov.
And afterwards, we will send out copies of the presentations and any of the documents and links that Lindsay sends. We'll be sending follow-up email to everyone with all of that information. So you'll probably get an email that has a lot of links and attachments to it between the MIHI and the BEAD projects and the CEDAM and the housing tip program this afternoon. So I'll try and send them in 2 separate emails so it doesn't get locked by spam folders.
And just a heads up, I like data. So I provide data in ways that I like data, which is an Excel spreadsheet that I can put data filters on at the top. If you need something in a different format to show your board, please let me know and I will happily. Okay. All right.
I understand that.
Some people just prefer a list that's nice and clean but yeah. Yes?
Along those lines, I mean, there are some companies out there that we're getting information from, and one we've approved an application for, and they give us the scope of work in our area, right? But we don't necessarily know if they're expanding beyond that, into other townships or the city. Will that map show us maybe if we look up a specific company where they have projects in the area, or?
I think if you look up your area, the question was if you can see the expansion outside your municipal limits. I think if you look up your area on the Michigan broadband map, and so to the east, on the east right side of the screen here is Hastings. So if you looked up Hastings and zoomed out a little bit, you can see all the red dots, and if you click on one of those, you can see who's serving in that area. And in general, just because of cost efficiencies, a lot of these dots are going to be served by the same provider, but maybe click on a few of them just to make sure there's not a couple different providers mixed in that one area.
Lindsay, can I hop in here? So one thing you can do is like, you could change the status from all to like unserved or underserved. So like or maybe the construction has started with the red dots. And then you can kind of bounce around, moving this way or that way, and then see, because like what you could see is where there are awardees. Like if you clicked on one of these dots, it might tell you this is a BEAD awardee. It might tell you where the company is. Or it might
Actually bring it up so I can actually show you what the dot looks like. Oh, no, I cannot. I'm not on the internet. I'll tell you what, I will take more questions while I work on this.
But there isn't like a surefire way to know where and who is awarded around you. But like she had said, she could send you, when she sends out this list, it'll show companies and what townships and areas they may be awarded. Then there's a little bit of visibility on who might be coming around, but not necessarily. And the other thing she said is exactly right, is there might be companies that are coming through an area that are doing it out of, spending money out of their general funds or out of investment funds as they see opportunity. Right. Separately from BEAD or other types of programs.
Oh. So if I click on this dot here, it says broadband funded, and this is the provider, this is the technology. And then if I go to...
But down below it shows REP is...
the source of funding. So this one is BEAD funded. Construction has not started. And this is the company that's going to be serving that location. And yes, I can go to here and click for all of the red dots. I can find them easier. Are there any other questions? Yes?
So I just, probably like a lot of other people, feel like our township is underserved for internet. And I get excited when I hear about companies coming to the township. But then it seems like sometimes they're limited. Like, they'll have a major presence, but you can't expand off of that main line, so to speak, to cover more people.
So
It
that
just
is,
seems restrictive.
his question is, it seems like when companies do come through, they stay on a main line and then they don't go out very far. That is part of what BEAD is for. It's to get the people that have there may be a mile off of that line that the company decided might not best serve their interest to build out there. This is that incentive to build out there. So we're getting internet to the people that it's harder to get to. And in some cases, the cost of building doesn't make sense. So let's take Island Royale. Nobody wants to build fiber under Lake Superior to get to the island. And in those cases, that's where the satellite service really comes in handy, because they're able to offer fairly inexpensive, not a lot of infrastructure costs to get service to those locations that are in that really doesn't make sense to build fiber to. I can tell you there is one entire county in the state of Michigan that is getting BEAD funding, but it has no ground disturbance activity because they're looking at low Earth orbit solutions in their area. But the places that needed internet were so spread out, it just, that's the way the bidding award process worked, so. Can I ask what township you're from?
Hastings.
Oh, so I'm kind of in your area then.
Hastings, Charlotte.
Okay.
Maybe east of the north.
And sorry, sometimes it takes a minute for this to, and of course I'm not using my mouse, I'm using a touchpad.
You're showing us your document.
I'm showing what?
Your document.
Look at that screen, not that screen. Sorry. I don't know how that happens. That's Holt. He's aptly named, but we didn't know that at the time. But here for this particular one, T-Mobile exists, Verizon exists, MEI exists, but it's funded with 123 now. So they will be asking for a Metro Act permit from you. Yes.
When I see T-Mobile on here, so you're talking non-line based stuff when you see T-Mobile, is that correct?
So this is something that's considered currently served with here, but it's under speed requirements because it's 0.2 by 0.2. So that's why this location was funded, is these three companies, their speeds that they're able to offer don't fit that
What is the speed
definition.
requirement?
100 over 25. So it has to be a 100 download, 25 upload speed.
So I'm looking at a place right now, I click on one, it's my new having problems. It's showing it's served, but it has 25. How's it showing served and doesn't have 25?
You probably don't want to give me their address, do you? Can we chat after?
Yeah, that's fine, I was just
Okay.
curious, because you're saying that, I just went to I know a problem, because the line's on my side of the road, but he can't get he can't get it on his side of the road, they won't want a line to, so he had to use the T-Mobile version, which is the puck that uses the cell phone towers. So does cell phone tower type stuff count?
So the company that has a line down your road is saying they will not build to his
Correct.
home. I would like to talk more about that and send that to a different person on my team.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm listening to what you're saying, I'm looking for the stuff, and you're just like, it's not adding up, and so.
Well, and if, as a community leader, if you hear about things like that, please tell us. Let us know.
But the fixed wireless service now can meet the 100 by 20.
100 by 20, yes, then she said 100 by 25.
Oh, 100 by 20.
And we test, we have compliance measures in place. As these companies build out their systems and networks, they are responsible for meeting the requirements of the grant program. And there's a whole team of people that will be double checking that those networks are managing what they say they can manage. Any other questions for me before I hand things over to